2 months after Marcus died, I was finally beginning to sleep through the night again when his lawyer asked me to come in for a brief conversation. He slid a small USB drive across the desk and said, almost apologetically, that Marcus had left instructions for me to watch what was on it, especially because it involved my wife. In that moment, I felt my chest tighten, not from grief, but from a quiet fear that some truths don't stay buried just because someone is gone. If this story resonates with you, you're welcome to support the channel by liking and subscribing for more real-life stories like this. 2 months after Marcus died, I was still moving through my days like someone underwater, hearing voices but not always understanding them, doing what needed to be done while feeling strangely detached from my own life. Marcus had been my best friend for over 20 years, the kind of friendship that survives moves, marriages, long silences, and unspoken disappointments, and losing him felt like losing a part of my history that no one else fully understood. When his lawyer called and asked if we could meet, I assumed it was about some unfinished paperwork, maybe a personal item Marcus had left behind, and I almost declined because I was tired of reopening wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. Sitting in that quiet office, holding a small USB drive in my hand, I felt confused when the lawyer said Marcus had left specific instructions for me, and that he wanted me to see what was on it alone. He didn't explain much, only added that Marcus had been very clear and very serious, and as I drove home, the weight of that tiny object felt heavier than it should have. My wife noticed my distraction that evening, asked if everything was okay, and I said yes without thinking, because that had become my default response whenever I didn't know how to explain something complicated. Our marriage had been steady, familiar, built on years of shared routines and mutual respect, but lately there had been a distance I couldn't quite name, something subtle that I had blamed on grief and exhaustion. Marcus knew my wife well, or at least I thought he did, and the idea that he had something urgent to say after his death unsettled me in a way I wasn't prepared for. That night, long after my wife had gone to bed, I sat alone in my home office, staring at my laptop, my finger hovering over the USB drive, wondering if opening it would change something I couldn't undo. I thought about Marcus in the last year of his life, how he had become quieter, more observant, how he sometimes looked at me as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the right moment. I remembered brushing off his questions, assuming he was just being protective or overly cautious, and now those memories carried a different weight. When I finally plugged the drive in, my heart was racing in a way that felt irrational, and yet deeply instinctive, as if some part of me already knew I wasn't about to see something simple or comforting. The folder that appeared had my name on it, and beneath it, another folder labeled with my wife's name, and in that moment, the grief I had been carrying quietly began to mix with something else, something sharper and more frightening. I closed the laptop without opening anything, suddenly aware that whatever Marcus had left for me wasn't just about the past, but about a choice I would have to make, between protecting the life I thought I had and confronting a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I didn't open the USB right away. It sat on my desk for days, heavy in a way no piece of plastic should be, because I already sensed that whatever Marcus had left behind wasn't meant to comfort me, but to prepare me. When I finally plugged it in late one evening, after my wife had gone to bed, the screen filled with folders labeled by dates, voice notes, and short video clips, all carefully organized, as if Marcus knew exactly how fragile the truth would be. His voice was calm, steadier than I remembered from his last weeks, and he spoke directly to me, explaining that some friendships are tested not by distance, but by secrets hidden in plain sight. As I listened, the world I thought I knew began to tilt, not violently, but enough to make me realize how long I had been standing on unstable ground. Marcus talked about noticing things years ago, subtle interactions between my wife and someone close to us, moments that felt off but were easy to dismiss if you trusted too deeply. What hurt wasn't the accusation itself, but the tenderness in his tone, as if he was apologizing for what I was about to learn. One file contained messages I recognized, fragments of conversations that had always been explained away, now stitched together into a pattern I could no longer ignore. I felt anger rise, then quickly collapse into exhaustion, because betrayal doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes quietly, rearranging your memories one by one. The hardest part was realizing Marcus had carried this knowledge while battling his own mortality, choosing silence until the very end, not to protect my wife, but to give me space to face the truth when I was ready. The next morning, I looked at her across the breakfast table and saw not a villain, but a stranger shaped by choices I had never been part of, and for the first time, I understood how loneliness can exist even inside a marriage. That evening, I told her I knew, not accusing, not shouting, just stating it as a fact, and the room filled with a silence thicker than any argument we had ever had. She didn't deny it, and that honesty, delayed as it was, felt like the final confirmation I needed. We talked for hours, not to repair what was broken, but to understand how it had broken without either of us noticing sooner. In the days that followed, I found myself grieving twice, once for Marcus, and once for the life I thought I was living, but grief has a way of clarifying what matters. I realized that staying would mean shrinking myself to preserve a version of peace that was already gone, and leaving didn't mean failure, it meant choosing truth over comfort. I packed a small bag, not in anger, but with a strange sense of relief, knowing that whatever came next would be built on honesty, even if it was lonelier at first. Marcus didn't give me answers to fix my life, but he gave me permission to stop pretending, and sometimes that's the greatest gift one friend can leave another.